Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into, well, the really fascinating, sometimes maybe a bit unsettling world of artificial intelligence. We're trying to get at a core question. Is AI genuinely giving us the perfect answer? And maybe just as important, what might we be giving up to get it?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Our mission today is really to unpack some pretty compelling source material that challenges this whole notion of AI being infallible. We'll look at its surprisingly long history, see how it's affecting our, fundamental human skills, and explore what critical thinking even means now in this age of algorithms.
Okay, so when we talk AI now, it feels so cutting edge, right? So new. But our sources, they take us back, way back actually, showing how the seeds for all this were planted decades ago. Like, think about the late 70s, early 80s, WordStar.
Oh yeah, WordStar, the word
Yep.
processor. That really was kind of the beginning of the end for the typewriter, wasn't it?
It really was.
And that's where this whole evolution sort of kicks off. Fast forward just a few years, 1983, and Microsoft Word arrives, which, well, we all know what happened there.
Yeah.
And one key thing was its dictionary. It fixed typos, sure, but you could add words to it. So in a very basic way, Word was actually learning from you,
Yeah.
adapting.
I remember that. Yeah, it felt kind of amazing, like the program was starting to understand my words.
Exactly. And it didn't stop there, did it? That functionality just kept growing. Now, you type a couple of letters, it suggests the whole word, fixes grammar, sometimes writes whole sentences for you. Looking back, it's pretty fascinating. Those features, they seem simple now, but they were really the earliest forms, the embryos, as one source called them, of machine learning, teaching computers from data and AI applications.
It's kind of wild to think the roots are in something so everyday, like a word processor. And okay,
Yeah.
it definitely brought practical benefits, no doubt, undeniable. But the sources suggest it wasn't all good news. What's the catch? What's the trade-off we need to look at?
Well, one really big one seems to be this hidden cost of digital convenience, especially around reading and education. Think about Twitter, now X, right? Launched in 2006, that initial 140-character limit, later 280.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of subtly taught us that anything longer was maybe too long to read, and that, maybe unintentionally, seems to have fostered a real difficulty, maybe even a lack of interest, in reading longer stuff for a whole generation raised online.
And that's a huge deal, isn't it? Reading isn't just like a hobby. It's fundamental. It builds how we think, how we use language. If we neglect that skill, well, the knock-on effect for society, for culture, it's got to be significant. It's not just about reading novels. It's about processing complex information, right?
Absolutely. And now you see these incredibly powerful AI tools everywhere. ChatGPT, Gemini, Bing AI.
Yeah.
It means we need to be, well, even more careful, more vigilant. And it's not just us saying this. Look, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, he warned about potential negative impacts at the London AI Summit last November. And think about that manifesto back in March 2023. Over 1,000 big names calling for a temporary halt, an embargo, just to try and understand the downsides before things go too far.
Okay, that sounds serious. Let's dig into a concrete example, though. This French newspaper report about schools wanting to switch from paper to tablets. It sounds modern, progressive. But Sweden already did that, right? They went big on tablets years ago and then pulled back.
They did. Yeah, they canceled it, rolled it back, because the expected positive results, in kids' learning and development, they just didn't show up. Worse than that, apparently many children actually became unable to even write properly by hand. They were just so used to typing on screens.
Wow. That's kind of ironic, isn't it? Pushing tech for advancement and losing basics.
It really highlights something crucial. Mastering those foundational skills, like handwriting, like reading deeply from a young age, it's incredibly important for developing proper critical thinking and intellectual ability later on. Without that base, everything else is shakier.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. That whole idea of automatically generating text with AI. It seems amazing, right? Just type a prompt, get an essay. But there's a big but, isn't there? What did the author find when they actually tested this?
Well, they found the absolute core requirement. If a person doesn't have those basic skills, independent, original, critical analysis, they just can't properly judge what the AI spits out. They can't tell if it's good, if it's relevant, if it's even accurate. It goes beyond just checking a few facts.
Right. So the author and expert in sociology tried it themselves. Asked an AI, presumably one of the big ones, for 2 short articles, 500, 600 words, sociology topics, even asked for references. How fast did it happen? What was the first impression?
Oh, the speed was apparently staggering, like seconds. And yeah, at first glance, they looked okay, plausible, maybe even interesting-ish. But the real test, obviously, was looking closer. A proper critical read. And that's when the problems jumped out.
Okay, so what did that closer look actually show? Was it as good as it seemed?
Not even close,
Mm.
apparently. There was lots of repetition, same arguments, just kind of rephrased, which, messed up the flow of ideas.
Yeah.
The conclusions felt weak, not really solid. It looked like the AI had done a really powerful copy and paste job from lots of different places.
Mm.
But crucially, without any real critical analysis stitching it together logically. And here's the kicker, the most alarming bit. Lots of the references it listed, they were just wrong,
Yeah.
inaccurate. Many simply didn't exist in academic databases.
Yeah.
Made up, basically.
So essentially, if you didn't already know the subject well, if you didn't have those critical skills to check and evaluate, you could easily just take that AI output as gospel, as the absolute truth, even when it's full of holes and, well, fake references. That's a massive potential pitfall.
It really is. And, that's why we're starting to see reactions in established fields, like academia.
Mm.
Some science journals now actually require authors to state if they used AI tools to write their papers. That's a pretty big shift in how scientific work is handled. Shows they're aware of these exact problems.
That makes sense. And it's not just labs and universities, right? Industry is catching on, too.
Mhm.
You mentioned over 1,500 companies trying to label AI photos and videos.
Yeah, adopting protocols to identify them,
Hmm.
trying to stop the flood of fake stuff, misleading content online. It's a huge challenge.
So the bigger picture here, the societal thing.
Hmm.
If we just accept AI output without thinking critically, what's the risk?
Well, the profound risk is that we people lose our ability to be active players in building knowledge. We stop being creators and critical thinkers in that process. We effectively hand that power over to the technology. We become hostages to it rather than the ones in control.
Which brings us back to that really sharp question from the source material. Are these technologies actually serving us, or are we, maybe without realizing it, ending up serving them?
Yeah, and I think it helps to remember what AI fundamentally is, at least right now. It's powerful algorithms, sure, processing huge amounts of data incredibly fast, but speed and scale, that doesn't mean it's infallible. It doesn't create knowledge from nothing. It works on the knowledge humans have already created and gathered. Think of it like a superpowered manager of a gigantic database, pulling bits together to make a response.
So the responsibility lands back on us, on you, the user. You
Yeah.
have to evaluate if that combination makes sense, if it's accurate. You're the final check, the editor.
Exactly. The critical analysis, it's not just like a nice-to-have skill anymore. It's essential.
Yeah.
Absolutely essential for spotting the risks, the flaws, the inaccuracies. You know that quote from Seneca, the Greek philosopher, "There is no favorable wind for the sailor who doesn't know where to go." Without that critical direction, you're just lost at sea with all this AI output.
Right. And it was interesting, that little note at the end of the article we've been discussing. The author made a point of saying their piece was written entirely without AI help.
Yeah. A little demonstration of what human thought can still do, right?
So, okay, wrapping this up.
Yeah.
What's the big takeaway? It feels like in this AI-driven world that's evolving so fast, our own judgment, our critical thinking, that's our compass. It's indispensable. We just can't afford to outsource our ability to question, to verify, to actually think.
Well said. And maybe here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. If AI is mainly just managing and recombining the knowledge humans have already created, what new responsibilities does that put on us? How do we make sure we're still cultivating new ideas, creating original insights, safeguarding real knowledge in a world getting more automated? How do we keep feeding that database with quality, not just quantity?